So I feel like this video is long overdue. I actually recorded it a couple times in the past and then I stopped, didn't put it out, didn't like it, it was too long, you know. My wife thought, yeah, it's not authentic enough. So one thing I should preempt is that this video it might be quite long, but if you stick around to the end, hopefully it'll give you some insight into where I'm going as a person, you know, as an individual, and where I've come from and where I've been. So where does it start? I think I've never done one of them YouTube like draw my life or them kind of situations, so I guess it'd be cool to give people some insight into where my YouTube journey started. So a lot of you guys followed me in 2012. This was when I did the massive viral Why I Hate School But Love Education video. I still love that video. Some points might change here and there, you know. I was a bit young and I didn't articulate certain things the way I would have liked to. What I'd actually want to do is I actually want to do a reaction to that video. Drop a like below or say in the comments if you'd like me to actually react to Why I Hate School But Love Education based on what has changed and what I would have said differently at the time, or just how I've grown more in that understanding. I mean, don't fear, you know, like the key message is still the same, but I feel like I've learned a lot more and met a lot more different people, being exposed to so many different environments since that process. Yeah, it was that video that kicked it off for a lot of you, but my YouTube journey actually began in 2009 when I was in university, and you can go back and see my first ever performance. My first ever performance is the first video I ever uploaded onto this YouTube channel. Is that not crazy?
That seemed kind of strange, but that was only the start.
One of the powerful things about technology, I remember being with Ben Brown many years ago, and he said to me, he was like, all the vlogs he's made, the greatest thing about it is that he can look back and he's documented his life. He used to vlog daily and document moments in his life, and I suppose for me that's a powerful experience as well. The first time I stepped on stage to recite some poetry or speak is on this YouTube channel. I think I uploaded it after I performed, but it's on this channel. So in 2009, YouTube wasn't a thing then, you know, there wasn't all this like YouTubers, there wasn't these channels, there was none of that. So I had this experience whereby I'd started writing, like, you know, creating poetry, you know, speaking my opinion in university. I studied law, for those of you who don't know, if you're not familiar with my history by now. I studied law, and I remember graduating and being like, nah, this isn't for me. I don't want to do this law thing. Let me see where I can push this craft that I discovered, or this new passion that I'd kind of fell in love with. At this time, YouTube wasn't a thing, so it was like just performances. And in university, performing was cool because I'd perform and I'd go to what was called ACS societies. These were African Caribbean societies. You know, I'm from Ghana. You know, I'm a black man, and you know, these were one of the few outlets where I could go and speak to people who, like, I felt could resonate with the topics I was talking about. So I'd go to these events, like university to university to university. A lot of people, they see the Why I Hate School But Love Education video, and they're like, you was wearing your university jumper, the University of Sheffield, that's why I attended. But at the time, it was one of my things to go to all different universities and collect their jumpers. I have no idea, well, I do know where their jumpers are, but I got kicked out of the house that I had the jumpers in, and yeah, that's a tragic story, but those were where the jumpers went. So I used to go from university to university performing. This was during my final year of university. When I graduated from studying law, I found that poetry or spoken word or whatever I was doing at the time was not a mainstream kind of talent, you know. It wasn't a mainstream kind of, there was no platform for it. That's the best way to explain it. So what I'd often find myself doing was like working, like I used to work in like the gross supermarket, like Sainsbury's and Tesco's. I'd find myself working there during the day and then scrounging around looking for an open mic in the evening to perform for like £10, £20. I mean, it wasn't a living, but it was a hustle, you know. It was cool. Like, everyone has to have a hustle. And that was my hustle at the time, hoping to make it a living. Now, I think very early on, I can say it in business terms now, but I saw a massive kind of like fault in that module, you know, in that business model that I was trying to apply. I didn't know the words then, but I saw it. I was like, all these places I'm performing, that's not where the audience that I want to reach is, you know. Those are not the people I want to talk to. I want to talk to young people like me, people like students, people who can relate to what's going on around me, you know, because that's how I've always related to art. And when you'd go to these shows, it was often a lot of people who were maybe more mature, you know, they were into poetry or spoken word, you know. It was never like young people just chilling, you know. So I was like, very early on back then, I was like, how do I reach these people who I think my work will really, really resonate with? So it was like, I was racking my brains and I was like, oh, the internet is the perfect place, you know. And remember, you lot, some of you were young, but this was 2009. You know, it doesn't sound like that long ago. Well, it is that long ago, but the internet was still like finding its legs. You know, YouTube was still finding its spaces. So I actually didn't even go onto YouTube first, which is funny. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to start uploading my stuff on the internet. This is something I'd been doing at university because we were all on Facebook. When we'd left university, I wasn't doing that no more. So I was like, I started making these short, self-contained little clips and I was putting them on Facebook, you know, and that started to build a bit of momentum. Like, people in the area used to be like, oh, that's Suli, you know, he's doing his thing. You know, I wasn't making any money, but I was gaining some kind of traction, you know, and this was like, I'm building a career. At the time, I was still working. I used to work in Marks and Spencer. It's like a supermarket, you know, just at the tills. And I remember one day I came home, and I don't know why. I think back then I framed it as political. I'd made a video about something. I don't know. I'd made a video, and that video had caused them to close down my Facebook account. So my Facebook account got shut down, and they said that I need to use my real name. So even till this day on Facebook, you can't find me as Suli Breaks until after they created the fan pages. So they shut that account down, and I was like, all my audience was gone. And I mean, when I say I was on Facebook, I used to hustle on Facebook, really used to hustle on Facebook. Like, I would send my work to every single person on my friends list, and then I would add all their friends and send my work to them, to the point where back then Facebook had a message limit. And maybe this is why they blocked me, actually, thinking back. But I was always hit, you've sent too many messages today, you need to stop. And it was a high number, like 200, 300 or something. And I was just sending my work to people. This is why a lot of young people always say to me, should they spam their work to people? And some people say, no, don't do that. And I mean, spam the shit out of people, you know, because the thing is, people online have the luxury to be like, I'm not going to watch it. You can send me something and I don't have to watch it, you know what I mean? So there's no harm in you trying to promote yourself and putting yourself out there. One thing I will say though is that one of the best ways to get people's attention is to just create. And once you get a reaction from them, you know you've created something good. So I guess one of the best ways is to create it and put it somewhere where they can see it. And occasionally you may get a comment from someone that you didn't expect to get a comment from. Now you struck a chord, you know what I mean? So next time you have work of that nature, if you want, you can tag that person in it, or that person would see it. I think one of the biggest calling cards, and as I go through you understand, but one of the biggest kind of like reasons for my growth was I always fed the reaction. Rather than waiting to go to people, I'd make things so everyone can see it. People just ignore you. People are dickheads. They'll just ignore when you're posting, but everyone can see it. But something causes them sometimes to react to stuff. And when you start getting a majority of people reacting that wasn't reacting before, you're like, I found my sound. I found my voice. I found my message, you know. That's what I've started to do. So it's all about consistently posting. But anyway, so my Facebook account got shut down at that time. When it got shut down, I was devastated. I started messaging Facebook. I started hitting them up. I started doing all these things. And that is when it was like, I need to find somewhere else to post my stuff. And it's how like serendipity or whatever works in it, you know, how God works. YouTube, at the time, they were just starting channels at the time, I remember. And I remember saying, oh, no, they hadn't started channels. But I remember thinking, oh, you know, I'm going to start posting my stuff on YouTube. And then this idea of channels started developing. I can't remember if it was 2010 to 2012. I can't remember, but I remember a friend of mine Layla, Fusion of Cultures. She lived just up the road from me. I'd known her since we were 16. And she had a YouTube channel and she had subscribers, and I started to ask her, what is this YouTube thing like? How come you are people following you? Are you making money? And she was like, oh yeah, I used to post on a blog, now I post on YouTube and I get comments. And instantly I was like, this is dope. This is like Facebook, but it's not my friends anymore. Like strangers can see it, you know. And then I became obsessed with YouTube, you know. One thing that no one can ever tell me is I knew my platform. Like I studied YouTube. I remember Daystorm was big at the time. Who else? He was one of my favorite because I just used to watch him with the challenges every single day. Ryan Heagle, was it Ryan Heagle? I can't remember. You know, there was rappers. You know, there was all these people on YouTube. Delegato Timothy. You know, he changed his name now. There's all these people on YouTube who were really like starting out, and I just remember I used to know how many views each person had, who was the top creators, Fuzi, you know, I used to mess, and I remember that. So YouTube became the focal point of my career. I used to have YouTube shows like By the Fireside, Riddle, really engaging with the community. I started to figure out upload patterns and how to get really into YouTube. Now, this is why I think consistency is important. I think with every career, you have to be consistent until you have a breakthrough or an epiphany. And every moment in my career, there's been a breakthrough and an epiphany, but those would not have happened if I was not consistent. So my breakthrough came during the YouTube process. I made a video with a company called Global Faction, and I remember, big them up, they made a video called RIP. And I remember making that RIP video. To all the victims of the gun crime and the knife crime, to them I say RIP. But when I say RIP, I don't just mean rest in peace, I mean rewind it please. This is what actually was the catalyst to my YouTube education. I made the RIP video and I remember it did very well. It went on World Star Hip Hop. Everyone was sharing it and that was a big deal at the time, you know what I mean? For people to be saying, oh, there's a poet, you know, he's in an American blog site. It was a crazy big video. And I remember after that I was like, okay, we got to follow up. I remember hitting up the director, Abdurrahman, you know, bless his soul. Bless his soul because he's a nice guy, nothing's happened to him. And I was like, I want to shoot another video. This next video is called The Box. What happened in that instant, this was another epiphany. I remember meeting with him and he was like, yeah, we can shoot another video, but we just shot a video for an artist called Loki. He's a big artist like in the UK, you know, very politically active. And he got 1 million views on that video. And that video was called Obama Nation. And this was around the time of like Obama's inauguration and around the time of everyone searching for Obama. And it sounds like common sense now. So don't like get onto me and be like, how could you not know that? But at that moment, it ticked in my head that, wait, you can engineer how to go viral. And he explained to me, he said, yeah, there's a thing called an algorithm, you know, like it teaches, like this is how it works. This was years ago, remember this. This is how it works. There's a science behind how they correlate the videos and the videos come together and they get big. And I was like mind blown. So in that moment, I discovered very early on, before a lot of people knew, I discovered there was a science behind YouTube. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to be committed to this science. The science was so funny that I remember there was a time where you could write this thing called Toad, Sprocket, Frog or something, and your videos would come top of the search engines. And I remember saying, I'm going to commit to the science of YouTube. Not just the platform, but the science. But then also, another thing happened here. He didn't end up shooting the next video. I can't remember what happened, but he couldn't shoot the next video. And what I realized was that if he's not going to shoot this next video, I need to shoot it myself. And I was not a video director by any means. I'd only done face to the, face like camera video shots like this. But I was like, you know what? People love this video style format that RIP is. I'm going to try replicate it myself. So that's when I shot videos like Cage Bird, you know, The Box, you know, Black Man. Like I really, there was 2 educations going on. Studying YouTube, which was when I started discovering all these creators who had the most views, all that stuff. And then there was studying film, like making videos. And this was a grind. I remember I wasn't getting no traction, this is way before anything could go viral. And I remember started working at the trainers, you know, you sell trainers in central London, the big one. And this is where I really understood the craft of audience development and connecting with people. I remember working there and I would make videos, you know, I didn't have time to make the big extravagant videos anymore, you know, which would go viral but wasn't doing that well, you know. I tested out this format of just talking to the camera like this and, you know, reciting my poetry. And people would come up to me at work and be like, oh, rah, like, I really like this video, I like that video, I like this video, I like that video. And for the first time, this is what I was talking about, I was working on reaction. So I started to make content that I knew the people around me would respond to. Do you get? So it was no longer like let me just make it, and if I like it, it was like, let me make it. If I like it and people respond to it, people around the world are going to respond to it. And this is where we started to build into the idea of like me becoming the YouTube Suli Breaks, because I started being really passionate about that. I started messaging like other creators. I remember, and this is how me and Patricia Bright, this is how we know each other till this day, even though we reconnected years after. I remember at the time, she's got like 3 million subscribers now, but I remember she had like 12,000 subscribers, and I messaged her saying, you're such a big YouTuber, do you mind sharing my stuff? And she was like, I'm not that big, but I don't mind. You know what I mean? And I remember like yesterday, she used to make like little videos, and she shared my video. And I remember ever since then, I think I hit her up maybe like 7-8 years later and was like, I still owe you for sharing that for me, because that was such a big deal. And even my friend Layla, we made videos together, you know, Love on the London Underground. This was just me capturing the stuff I was doing on stage and putting it online, but then also communicating with the YouTube audience. And I would like to say that at that time, I was in love with the process of creating on YouTube. And this may not seem relevant now, but it's going to be probably relevant later as the story progresses, and you see where I've been on this channel. That year when I was working, that's when the infamous Why I Hate School but Love Education video took off. And I was inspired to make that video. Like I said, I'd been studying virality. One of the things I couldn't do was covers. You know, I tried doing a few covers with the poetry, but it wasn't working. But then Jefferson Bethke did this video called Why, I hope that's how I pronounce the name. He did a video called Why I Hate Religion but Love Jesus. And I was like, this is dope. I can cover this video. For the first time, that video had like 23 million views. I was like, I have something that I can cover. I remember making a version of this video. This is never heard on YouTube. Me and my boy Darcy, when I said I can make this video and this is gonna go viral, that day me and my boy Darcy, he came to my crib and we were like, we're about to make a viral video. This video is gonna go viral. We stayed up till 5 AM that day recording I wrote Why I Hate School but Love Education, but then we recorded it. But the way we recorded it is not the way you saw it. It was a series of different black and white clips that came together to make the video. And I remember doing the video and it was like, the video didn't go nowhere. Like we did, I mean, Darcy was like, we should buy maybe views for it, all that stuff like that. And I remember being so disheartened, thinking, what went wrong with that video? This is the viral video. Why did it not take off and launch us into a different space, innit? And that was kind of like, oh man, this is the dud. It didn't really do anything. And then I remember being at home, you know, I'm just creating my YouTube content, you know, at Nike Town. I had to shoot a video for Jaja Souls. He's an artist in the UK, like very he was a rapper, now he does spoken word, he mixes the two. Very prominent figure in South London, in the youth space, in the music industry. You know, he founded one of actually the largest gangs or more prominent gangs from South, and he kind of reformed his life after that. And I was shooting a video with him, and I remember shooting his video and meeting the director. And at that moment, me and the director just clicked. Kevin and Gongo, shout out my brother Kevin. It's weird because the same week he called me, another platform in the UK, it's a very big platform now, they'd called me and saying, we want to make a video out of one of your poems, the Why I Hate School but Love Education. We think it's going to be really big if we do that, innit? And I was thinking, oh, this video didn't do anything, but you know, I might as well do it with them. But then at the same time, I met Kevin, and Kevin was like, I want to make a video out of your Why I Hate School but Love Education kind of poem. And I thought to myself, last time I made a video and put it on someone else's platform, I was never able to follow that up. You know what, let me make it with Kevin and put it on my own platform. And we shot that video, you know, bear in mind I was still working full time, you know, I was making a little more money from doing shows here and there, but we shot that video. We shot it first time in front of the same location, same college, everything. And I remember Kevin calling me after we shot the video and he said, bro, like the lip sync, the way you was talking didn't work out. We need to go back and shoot that video again. And I was like, do I really have the energy to go back and shoot a whole video again? You know, some of the decisions we make, we didn't know were going to change our lives. We went back, we shot that video. I remember it was stressed. Students are walking past. If you watch the videos, you can see students looking in. Security was like, you can't shoot here. And we shot that video, and till this day, God is good. You know, Allah is my witness. That video changed my life. Why I Hate School but Love Education. So what are you studying for? To work for a charity? Need more clarity? Let's look at the statistics. 2 point whatever million views in that same week. That same week, I'd been told that I was going to get fired from my job. I actually shot that video before I'd been told I was going to get fired, but I was on a 2-week probation video. That video was released the week when they was bringing me in the office to say that you're fired. And that video took off, and it was like, I've arrived in this YouTube space. Quick note here. A lot of people think when you go viral, that's it. No, there's different types of virality. So I've had multiple types, but the first type of virality is when it goes viral and nobody knows who you are. It's cool, it takes off, everyone's seen this video, but we like that guy, but we don't know who he is. The second kind of viral is that I will not let an exam result decide my fate viral. That's the viral when they're like, who is this guy? How do we find him? Let's contact him. And you become a presence. So in between that video, we shot another video, American Dream.
You know what I noticed about successful people? Successful people take a course of action which coincides with their belief or passion.
Shout out my manager Shay. I remember us shooting that video, and I thought that video would flopped. You know, it didn't do 1 million views. I was quite disheartened. I didn't have a job. I needed another 1 million views to follow up, but it did what it needed to do for me to establish myself for when the next video came out. I would not let an exam result decide my fate. And that's when, you know, I started getting the phone calls, people wanted to meet me, you know, and around this time, you know, I started getting more bookings. And then also I had found a format that I wanted to create content with on YouTube. I was in love with the process of making these interesting videos, you know. So me and Kevin, we shot more Parents Are the Hardest People to Please. You know, we shot all these other videos that, you know, little clips here and there. I was like a YouTuber now, you know. I had a network, I had all these things, and it was exciting to be creating. Even thinking back now, it makes me so happy. You know, I even, you know, I met my friend who's like a key part of this story, Sol, who really taught me about business, you know, and he was like, okay, he was the one that gave me the opportunity with another guy, James Hegar, a very good guy, you know, investor, to fly around the world, you know. You lot may have seen that, Around the World in 80 Days, where I met Will Smith, you know, I went to Japan, one of my life goals, all these things. So everything just kept on going up. And I think this is where the story starts to disappear from you guys, because up until this point, all of you guys were following it. So after going viral and having all these experiences, and I've been creating content on YouTube, I started to get into the position to do the things I actually wanted to do, you know, which was speak. You know, you saw me do the TED, you know, this was just to perform, to create content, you know, to talk to people. You lot have seen how I became a superhero speech, you know. Shout out my boy Drew, very good friend of mine now, manager of Joyner Lucas, who helped me set up some of the things in America. You know, we did that, how I became a superhero speech. Without him, that wouldn't have happened. So what happened was I started to get into the space where I was now able to do what I wanted to do when I started out YouTube. You know, I didn't necessarily need to be on YouTube to feed that. You know, I was getting brand deals, I was getting paid to speak, not just about like my experience, but about inspiration, you know, like follow the leader. I was able to speak about like building business, all this kind of things. And this was a time as well that YouTube was going through a very crazy transition. It wasn't crazy transition. YouTube was becoming the YouTube that it is today, you know, where we had YouTubers and, you know, people that made content specifically for YouTube. This is when the YouTube culture was really transferring to the UK. So you had people like Zoella, Alfie, KSI, you know, like Jack Scap, all these people who were, and YouTube was becoming a platform for this content creation. We kind of started to go this way, because what I found when it came to the content creation of YouTube is that there started to become formats in which you can create YouTube. You know, the algorithm was promoting a certain way to create content, you know, and like there, you know, you could do challenges, you could do vlogs, you could do all these things. And I just wanted to make these spoken word videos, you know, I just wanted to make these poetry and speak. And I was feeling like creatively I could do that in the spaces I was doing anyway. And that's when the channel started to become, it was not necessarily a passion, it was a place to create. It wasn't a place to create content because I was doing that everywhere else. It became a place for content to sit, you know. It became like a part, an extension of what I was doing, you know. It was where the content sat, but it wasn't where I created the content for. You know, every once in a while I'd get inspired and make something, but it wasn't the same way where it was like YouTube was my only outlet. And now that the algorithm was driving people in specific ways and making you make this content, it's like I tried it a few times, you know. let me make this kind of video, you know, let me make weekly videos, let people know that this is the format, subscribe. But I felt like that didn't really connect with where I wanted to be. And also, and this is my own insecurity, I found that being labeled a YouTuber, I didn't like the title. You know, I was, you know, as everyone, we have egos. I was like, nah, I'm more than a YouTuber. I didn't start on YouTube. These guys wasn't, you know, I actually go out and do things outside of YouTube. So my own ego was like, I need to be less labeled as a YouTuber as possible, you know. I was not as in love with the way the platform was as was before, and that's when I started doing like weekly videos and putting them out, and I'd look at them and be like, nah, this is not good. This is feeding the algorithm. This is feeding a specific type of audience, you know. Touch on a certain subject that we know is trendy or is viral or we know is controversial, write a few rhymes around it and then put it out there and let people argue about it. That was never the purpose of my content. I'd always created content to really engage with things that I cared about, you know, and I found myself kind of drifting in that direction. And to be honest, I fell more in love with creating, but less in love with creating in the YouTube format. And, you know, things were just going great. I was getting so many opportunities, you know, brand deals, you know, and everything has just been like, it was exactly how I envisioned it going forward. So I think that's where like the ins and out of YouTube started to come in. The real distraction, the moment that I really kind of disconnected from my YouTube audience, and this was where it was like, I don't even care about making content for YouTube, was when I went to work on an album project. So my whole thing was like, I don't want to be labeled a YouTuber. So what can I do to distinguish myself? I said, you know what, I can be an artist. So I spent money and I spent like a good part of a year working on this album, you know, that was going to be like, when I come back onto YouTube, everyone's going to see this album and they'll know that I'm a serious person, you know. That was where like Message from the Millennial Generation and all these other poems came from. But I remember finishing the album after this whole year, you know, of telling people, wait till this album comes, you'll see that I'm more than a YouTuber. And I remember listening to it and I was like, I was trying to prove to myself something. I was trying to be something that wasn't necessarily unique to me. It was more like I could do what everyone else was doing. And that was when it was like, I'm not going to put this album out, but I need to kind of find what I want to do creatively. And in this process, I uploaded some stuff on YouTube here and there, but it was never really, the spark was never really for the platform. And I think that it took me to about maybe 2016, 2017. So this was like 2012, things took off. I was proper on it to about 2015. And then it was about from like 2015 to 16, I was like, I think it was 16 where I really found the fire again. And that's when I did Not a Role Model. And those of you who were able to come to that knew that that is where I really sat with, where I wanted to sit with my voice and my message. I wanted to be able to curate a message that was so powerful and then communicate it to people live to them, you know, in their face, in a space, you know, where we connected. And then after that, I could take that content and put that online. And, you know, but we had this kind of like one man show dynamic. And that's really where YouTube became that passion again, because I was like, I have something that I want people to come and see. And that's where these beautiful videos came out, like The Graveyard, Adulthood, and, you know, a lot of these videos that people are like, wow, these look really good and the message is really powerful, because I sat down to write them, not for an algorithm, but it's because I felt this, you know. And I remember Not a Role Model being such a big highlight. If you ain't seen that, go and watch that. Please leave a message in the comment if you saw Not a Role Model. That was such a massive, like, after Not a Role Model, I remember I went away for 2 weeks. We was in New York, you know, with an initiative called World Merit, you know, talking to world leaders in the United Nations about how we can achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And I remember I was like, okay, I'm going to do the next one. I'm going to do the next show. But before we did the next one, we decided to tour Not a Role Model, which was equally exciting. And I remember gearing up for the next show and things just started happening around me. Like, I started to, like, you know, I wanted to make content with people. They started disappearing, you know, like people that like I wanted to work with just started being like, oh, you know, they couldn't do the work anymore. I started to feel like relationships kind of like just fading, you know, and it was maybe when I can figure out why, that was the case, because I thought like this is the peak, this is what we're creating. But I guess I was creating it for myself, and I don't know if other people were seeing it the same way, you know, other than like my close like knit community who were excited about the new show, which was going to be How I Became a Superhero. So that led to a massive dip in like the YouTube content coming out again, for those of you who just follow me on YouTube. But I was still doing other stuff, you know, I'm still making money, doing very well. And then you know, I found out I was having my first child, my son, and he was born in 2017. So like a whole year, almost, he was born December, so a year afterwards. And I remember just being like, alright, cool, I'm gonna take some time away and really search for how we're gonna make this happen. I thought the next thing that was gonna happen would be the show, but inside me, I felt creatively that something else was building, you know. To add to all this, like I said, I met my friend Sol, who's an investor, and one of the things I've always been passionate about is creative entrepreneurship. So I was spending a lot more time around him, his companies, what he was building, and soaking in that education. You know, I'm really passionate about like, you know, capital, tech, and then startups. So I'd you know, I've been like companies, Cano, Platoon, So Far Sounds. I've been there since the inception, helping out where I can. So this was like, I was seeing that I was leaning into going to that space as well, and I was trying to marry that with the art. But it was a very big process of like self-discovery, like a very big process of like artistic discovery, and like, what can I make for myself, by myself, and how do I share with the community? You know, how do I share the new business insight, the new life insight, all that kind of stuff. So my son, I took about maybe like 6 months out when he was born, and I think, or maybe 3 months, probably less, because I remember going to South Africa and being like, you know what, I know I want to do this other show, How I Became a Superhero. You know, we'll have to find the new people, we'll find people to do it, and I want to make it big. And I remember us announcing that like in 2017. By 2018, I'm getting the dates a bit wrong, we'd found the venue. But anyway, afterwards, we found out the venue for How I Became a Superhero. That was going to follow the same format as Not a Role Model, releasing videos, creating content, and then putting it out there, and you know, and leading up to the show. Long story short, that was one of the most heartbreaking instances in my career, because we had this Brixton Academy. You know, my goal is one day to, God willing, like do the O2 Arena, you know. So at the time we was doing the O2 in Brixton Academy, and it was like, this is going to be a big event, this is going to be the first time a poet has ever taken that stage. You know, my messages were powerful, I was writing, you know, wanted to create the content, and I was finding it hard to find people who wanted to make the content. People were disappearing on me. It was literally my wife, you know, and a couple of my close team carrying that show on my back. And I guess that maybe that had an impact on the outcome, but I just remember this is the first time I'd worked with a major promoter, and I remember we had so many disagreements with them. And then the last straw just came where they were like, listen, we're not getting along with this show's not happening. And that was one of the most heartbreaking moments of my career or my life, just because this show had been announced, we started performing, putting it out there, you know, I'm making the content, I'm ready to go, you know, paying people. I lost a lot of money to do this How I Became a Superhero, and it all just went down the drain. And now I kind of know more about mental health and depression, and I'm learning, but I was definitely like, during that period, like, I didn't want to do anything. I remember just like driving after I found out the show had been cancelled, and just pressing on the accelerator, and it was like I'm on a motorway and I'm just going faster and faster and faster, and I was just like, you know what, like, let me just see how fast I can go, like, who cares what happens, like, just faster and faster and faster and faster. It was like not saying I was like suicidal, but I remember that specific instance, like, really being like, who cares about anything. And after that, I was broken, man. There'd be times where I just go like running, and you know, I just start screaming, you know, just like I live like kind of out, you know, where there's a lot of a spacious area. I just run, and thinking about the show, and I just start screaming into the air. And I think, although in that moment of despair, something, the night of the soul, as we call it, something interesting happened. I started watching a lot of YouTube again, but I started watching different content to what I'd watching before. What had started to come about was like the video essay, you know, this is like maybe a year ago, a year before, the concept of the video essay. And I found this so amazing, like people dissecting and breaking down concepts and taking it apart. And I remember like sitting down to be like, I'm going to make a video essay. And I think I think the one I made was about Grave of Fireflies. It took me forever to make that. And that's the first time I'd opened my editing software and how long. But I remember making that and I enjoyed it so much. You know what I mean? I enjoyed making. And one thing I'd never stopped doing was writing. You know, I'm a writer. I've always wanted to write. So I really kind of just started like, I'd write the video essay out and I'd love it. I started to just like explore writing a lot more. I've always been a speaker, but I was thinking like writing was always something I'd leave a lot later down the line. And I started doing it. The reason the video essays took so long to come out is because I don't have an editor, but I enjoyed editing them myself and putting the little images together. But I was like, I could kind of do this on YouTube. I like the idea of just writing and putting out content, but YouTube was never really there. It was kind of like, how do I explore further my writing? So between us, I've been writing like for years, like, you know, always, you know, you've got so many books here. One of my first passions, I always said, was like writing before performing on stage, just that no one would read what I was writing. So I started doing that a lot more. I started writing, you know, and then I started to get the passion for like, oh, I could perform this, I can create this, someone needs to hear this message. But then I discovered writing as a whole new world, you know. Like and I think now we're getting to 2020, you know, you can see some of the content. I think that's the lockdown happened, you know, COVID happened, and it was like, you know, you see I put out some content there because I was at home, but I was finding more time to write and fall in love with it. And then I started to learn more about writing, you know, and that really culminated, and I ended up taking a writing course, you know, at Stanford University during the summer, like, and I just fell in love with it, you know. I just started reading more and like about writing and, you know, like the art of it and creating. And, you know, since we can't perform, that's all I can really do. So where I got to was like, I'm making content, but I don't know where it sits, you know. That's cool. And I think during the lockdown, because I'd learned so much in my writing course, I wanted to explore some of it. So I started writing some threads on Twitter, you know, and if you follow me on Instagram, you kind of saw that those threads and the content around them kind of just started blowing up, you know, and I was like, this is cool, I can write, you know, and people can take it in, and if I want, I can explore the subjects more. Yeah, like if you lot don't follow me, you see it, and you see that that's kind of like become a platform for me. But in the meantime, just to give it a bit of context, YouTube actually contacted me. They did a YouTube Black program where they wanted to promote Black creators and give them bigger platforms. And they were like, listen, you're one of like our favorite creators on the platform. You have been for many years. We'd love you to make something and to carry on making content. And we did like a 3-week workshop. Not only did I meet other YouTubers that I really like connected with, but at the same time I was like, you know what, creatively I found my expression. And, you know, let me see how I can explore that on YouTube again, because I've been watching YouTube non-stop. Because for me, YouTube has become a place where there can be the YouTubers, which is great. I love some of them. There can be like the creators, you know, video makers, filmmakers. I love some of them. And there can also be like the philosophers, you know, people that explore subjects, you know, and then there can be the writers, and then there can be the food bloggers. And now it's become completely more diverse. I feel like I'm more comfortable now coming on the platform and being who I am unapologetically and just exploring to see where that goes, you know, rather than feeling an obligation to be like, I'm this kind of creator, I need to make this kind of content. And, you know, so yeah, I've got a passion for writing, and I want to see how that comes in the content that I'm making moving forward. But I just love creating. Like, you know, I've got a love for creating the way I've always loved creating, but I don't see me as having to separate YouTube from that equation. So basically what I'm asking is not for forgiveness, to cut a long story, but also I'm letting you guys know that I'm going to make a couple mistakes in this process. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes in this process of like making content. But I feel like one of the things that was said to me really recently was that I've always seen YouTube as a place where I make content and I leave it there. You know, this is my service, isn't it? But someone said to me that like, your audience on YouTube don't just care about the content, they care about you. And I've found that through writing, a lot of it is about you and who you are. And then I found as well that like, I've never been the kind of guy to share my personal life or like just things I'm thinking outside of creating content on YouTube. Once or twice, but it's never been. But I know that there's people that might relate to that. You know, recently I shared a post, you know, on Twitter about just grief, you know, and going through things, and maybe that's another conversation, you know. But I realized that people, it doesn't have to be popular. There's people out there who said, you know what, they reached out and said to me, how can I help you, you know, and that meant a lot to me. At the same time, there was people that were like, this really resonated with me, thank you for sharing. And I feel like sometimes being so closed off to being like, this is who I am, limits your opportunity to connect with people. And my thing is all about connection and relationships, and, you know, helping people and communicating whatever medium I can. So hopefully there's going to be some content, might not be much direction, but there's going to be like some conversations, and you know where my passions lie, and I'm interested you lot to take you lot on the journey of my evolution, my growth, my creation. And so many people on this platform have held me down for so long, what regardless of like where I've migrated, how consistent I've been or whatever. And it's nice to have that community along the journey. Whew, it's a long video. I feel my voice even going a bit, but this is not an ad. I didn't set up this whole video so I could do an ad for Highland Spring. I don't have a sign out anymore. I used to do like just peace or save or whatever. Hopefully this conversation helped. If you have any questions, feel free, comment below. And enough love, man. I'm grateful at the moment. I think what I've been practicing is gratitude, and I'm really grateful for the things I have.